Everyone knows that Taysom Hill is one of the most versatile players in the NFL. But do you know 4 ways Klint Kubiak can unlock the potential beast mode in Taysom Hill? I do. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Look, the Saints have a unique weapon in Taysom Hill, but they have struggled constantly to integrate him into their game plan week to week. A little bit, even when Sean was here, when he first conceived the whole idea of Taysom Hill as a football player, but it was really beyond excuse, quite frankly, in the Pete Carmichael era. We just could not get one of our best players consistently on the field with touches and targets. It's got to change. Everybody knows it has to change. Klint Kubiak, if he wants to keep his job, he must rise to the challenge of maximizing the touches for Taysom. Because without maximum touches, you're not only you're not maximizing, you're minimizing his potential impact on the field. And there's different ways you can get Taysom utilized in the offense because he brings so much a skill set that's unbelievable. A skill set as a runner, as a receiver, as a dual threat quarterback, even as a drop back pocket passer quarterback in a pinch. Not necessarily that's probably of all his abilities, that's the one we probably want to avoid. But even then, it can be useful at times. There's no doubt about it. But just in recent years, especially the last two, it was like it was a bother almost for Pete to try to get Taysom involved in the offense. Not good. Not good. Not a good concept at all. And the way they did use him became kind of so predictable that it was amazing we had success using the quote unquote Taysom package or some variation of that Pete had dreamed up. But I think the main reason why it worked, it had nothing to do with scheming or play calling or game planning or anything like that. I think it just came down to how much Taysom Hill has an ability to be a not notice what I'm going to say after the word great. His ability to be a great football player. He may not have ever been a great quarterback, a great running back, a great wide receiver, a great tight end, however they wanted to deem him in the offense. But as a football player, someone with the ability to do all that, which very few football players do at that level, he was absolutely amazing. And it was just untapped potential we never tapped into. So before we get into some video clips on how Klint Kubiak can use what Kyle Shanahan does to unleash the Taysom Hill beast, a few things that I need to mention. One, This these video clips that I've kind of taken out of a larger video is from courtesy of Harrison's Huddle, a channel on YouTube. His video, how Kyle Shanahan runs his offense. Um, he goes into it's a much longer video than the few clips I'm going to show you. He goes into great detail. And when I was trying to learn a lot about the um, wide zone scheme and kind of how it's done and how the Shanahans do it, this video helped me a lot. So it was kind of my go-to when we want to start talking about how this scheme can help Taysom Hill. I'm not sure. I think it's the 2021 season that these are taken from, but I know for a fact this is pre Brock Purdy and pre Christian McCaffrey. You will not see either one of them in this video. So from the time this was filmed, not only has the scheme probably changed some in the play calling and all, but you get the basic idea. But some of the key players have definitely played because Frisco upgraded both the quarterback and running back in the running back position was pretty good, but it got a whole lot better when they got McCaffrey there. So keep that in mind because we're going to use a little bit of our imagination while we're doing this, since these are some players, some still with Frisco, some not. While we're watching this, I think we need to, and I was trying to do it as I was cutting this, use our imagination a little bit, thinking about Kamara, Jawan Johnson, Shaheed, Olave, A.T. Perry, et cetera, down the line, being the players out on the field on this. And we're going to do 4 different scenarios covering how they could use Taysom Hill. And the first one is I think where Saints fans have been wanting um, the Saints to start, which is updating the Taysom Hill goal line, short yardage package, whatever you want to call it. In this particular scenario, I do have to point out there's a couple guys you wouldn't be expecting. Normally, in a lot of these videos, you're going to see Elijah Mitchell as a primary running back. Actually, this guy split all the way down here on the left, kind of offensive left, kind of bottom of your middle of your screen. That's Jeff Wilson. Fast is not doesn't describe accurately how fast this guy is, and he got a lot of playing time back in those days. Oddly enough, this is about the time Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator of Shanahan before he went to Miami. And if you've taken a look at Miami, in fact, Jeff Wilson followed him over there and is still there as far as I know. He built everything around speed. And just pointing that out because there's one guy on this field that becomes kind of important who has speed to burn. Think Shaheed. George Kittle, the tight end, is lined up on the line of scrimmage, a couple yards off the left tackle. Trent Williams, they become very important in this play. Backup quarterback, Trey Wilson, who's no longer with Frisco, is running this play. And this is one I pulled for a purpose because if Garoppolo would have been here, he's a little less of a dual threat. Obviously, the backup quarterback with better mobility and speed, like Trey Lance had over Garoppolo, is a dual threat. Probably not as fast and definitely not as big, as powerful as Taysom Hill. So keep that in mind. We would be doing this slightly different. But the key thing, and the other thing is, I do not know who the trip set, the 3 of these guys up here. I'm guessing that might be Deebo, but I don't know that for sure, and who the other 2 players are. And as they say, they're kind of the eye candy anyway. But I didn't want to point all that out, that you're not seeing McCaffrey, you're not seeing Purdy, the guys you're used to seeing the last couple of years when this offense was running on all 12 cylinders. So just to start it up here, this is what's going to be happening. The motion that it's creating. It's a wide zone left play. You're going to see that pretty obviously. But Wilson's going to jet around to the backside of and jet's the key word here. He's going to go motion and jet around to the backside of the formation. While Trey Lance is going to roll to the left. And Trent Williams, it's not quite a pull, it's more of a slide to the left once And it becomes a pull once he realizes Kittle, who's right next to him a few yards away on his left, has slid down and sealed the end of the line of scrimmage. So their tight end, one of the best pass catching tight ends in the league, is blocking at this point. And then up top, you kind of have a situation, and that's what I was waiting for, the spot shadow. It's a 3-on-3 up there. So there's three receiver types up there. One of them may be a tight end or a fullback, or so Green Bay has now been spread out already on this formation. They have speed that they have to worry about all the way on the left side of it. They have pretty good speed from a guy getting ready to take a snap, and they're forced to move three people out to deal with that trip formation going on to the right side of the offensive formation. And that becomes important a little later in this play. And there's Wilson in motion. Obvious zone left. There's spot shadowing. Kittle has done his job, sealed, so Williams gets to blow out of there. And at this point, you notice Trey Lance is tucking that ball. Now, I don't know if this was a pre-designed run play, so this is where we're going to use our imagination a little bit. Imagine this more of a rollout with a pass run option, which Lance was mostly a rookie or a second-year guy because I'm really not 100% sure what year this is from. But regardless, Taysom, way more experience than Lance had at this point, where you would maybe have Lance just on a design run. But right now, you could actually have Taysom on a design roll. So let's use our imagination and imagine a design roll. And if this play plays out exactly like it does, Taysom has more than enough experience to realize right then and there he'd be tucking the ball and doing exactly what Trey Lance is getting ready to do. And look at it from the upper angle, you can really see you know what's about ready to happen right here. The offense is already planning their celebration, and Trey Lance is still back here. And I think my video, there we go. I think we froze, but Williams blew up the poor defensive back, likely a corner, who was stuck isolated out there because between the formation and the motion, there just wasn't enough bodies out there to deal with a wide left run, especially once Kittle sealed the end of the line. So this is even without that devastating block. If this is Taysom Hill using our imagination again on that roll, once he decided to tuck and run it, our left tackle doesn't have to completely destroy the defensive back on the end of the line. He's just got to slow him down enough so Taysom can be Taysom, because once he's squared up and moving forward, he doesn't go down easy. And anybody hitting him in this situation, because I think he's a little faster than that. I really do than Trey Lance. So he'd probably be a yard closer to the end zone at this point. No, he's in the end zone, even with contact coming. So, like I said, early on, a veteran, like even if this was more of a designed rollout run pass option, Taysom's been around long enough and taken enough snaps in this situation very early, much like when Trey Lance tucked it, he would be tucking it, and it would have been a touchdown at that point. There's no way that defense at that point would be able to keep him out the end zone. And that's really what we're trying to do, is get creative and away from that just power bash it in there. There's a much better look at what went on there. And that's something that would make Vince Lombardi proud, because that's definitely a get me back up here. Let's just leave Vince on the leave him up on the video, because Lombardi, those of us older to remember and know the stories, love, and he used to call it student body, where he would send everybody right or left to try to run a sweep. Well, you just saw a sweep he would love to see. but not using everybody, not having to pull a lot of people, created space for the runner, in this case, the quarterback, without doing anything overly exotic except spreading the formation, putting a really fast guy you don't want his hands in or the ball in his hands in space. And I'm not talking about Hill. I'm talking about Jeff Wilson or Rashid Shaheed or Alvin Kamara. Somebody, either one of those two guys on that motion is now causing stress on the defense. Because remember, the right side was trips right. That's the view I want right there. Is trip right. So they had to send three defenders over there. Now you're putting somebody in motion, basically making it a quad situation. And the fourth guy going over there is probably, well, not probably, is definitely the fastest guy on the field. And if you're looking right now on your screen, he's got a whole lot of space. If, again, imagination, instead of at this point figuring it's a straight run and walking the park in the end zone where it was actually defended, because you got to think to defend this, you're seeing one, two, three Green Bay defenders there, four, five. So you've got with two of the receivers that were split out, one trying to cross the end zone. So you have basically a 5-on-4 situation here, which means you got no numbers here and no way to stop it. But if we use our imagination, and this was more of a rollout, some of these guys were down here in the play. Some of these guys were able to kind of step up, or even if this guy was not sealed off right away and able to come down the line and string that play out, all of a sudden the play flow of the defense, the run fits are coming, and it's not an easy walk in the park like this. But if all that were happening, who I think is Deebo Samuel would be crossing in the back part of this end zone, this Jeff Wilson character would be able to hang out here as in some type of check down. And these three guys are still dealing with the other two receivers and having this issue develop. There's a lot of brown pants syndrome going to be going on this side of the defense if they get in that situation. And again, if it's Taysom rolling, recognizing they read the outside run, they bottled it up, but now I've got the space in the mismatches back here, either crossing the end zone or on the check down. And if these guys start jumping routes and leave these characters open, well, yeah, you're creating more space. So updating the Taysom package was first on my list of things to do in this because the more I started trying to teach myself what exactly the wide zone scheme is and how the Shanahan version and then the Kyle Shanahan version as he morphed it along from what his dad used to do 30 years ago when it first kind of came into vogue, to the play calling, the eye candy, the motion, the mismatches, all these kind of simple things. There was nothing really difficult in that play at all that caused massive stress on the defense, and just put it in a situation where they couldn't defend everything. And there was going to be an opportunity to make a play somewhere along here. And made a play they did. It was literally a walk in the park. And also like stopping it right here because there's no doubt everybody on the offense, like I said earlier, they're already planning their end zone celebration because everybody, I think, on this field, all 22 players, at this point, no, barring a funny yellow flag coming out for no reason, this is 6 points for the offense. Now, the second topic we're going to cover is, well, Taysom as Deebo, which basically taking Taysom Hill and using very similar to how the 49ers have been using Deebo Samuel since they drafted him, which I think it's 2019. It's a simple yet complex kind of thing that we're going to be talking about here. In this first part, we're primarily focusing on the run game, believe it or not, because Deebo is listed as a wide receiver. But in reality, he's functionally used a lot like Taysom Hill, like we're talking about should be used, where the position designation next to his name from game to game sometimes just does not matter. And kind of echoing something that Klint Kubiak said in one of his talking to the press, is he views Taysom Hill as a weapon. That was his response when they asked him what position he's going to play. That's kind of how the 49ers viewed Deebo. And then when they got Christian McCaffrey in the fold, they kind of viewed them both as a dual weapon. So we're once again, I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. I think in all these clips, the running back is Elijah Mitchell, but Jeff Wilson, maybe in one or two of these, doesn't really matter. Whoever the Frisco running back is, our imagination, we're picturing Alvin Kamara, possibly even Kendry Miller if he's healthy and kind of lives up to what the Saints expected from him when they drafted him last year. And definitely when we see 19, we're using our imagination. That's 7. And there's no better place to start off than a set Frisco used to use frequently. And they still do, but I don't think quite as much with Deebo. Because if you notice right here, let me get you where you can see it a little better. If you notice right here, 19 is lined up as the actual running back, and the actual running back, which I'm pretty sure is Elijah Mitchell, was lined up in a slot before the very beginning of the play. But you're seeing him now as he's going in motion across the formation. And the result, simple zone, outside zone read, blocked up really well, reads it correctly, gained yards. He did not hit the end zone. It got clipped off. I clipped it off before, but he was tackled short of the end zone, but made a nice first down run there, or a 10-yard gain there. Need to have a slight conversation about this because Deebo, whether he understood it initially when he got there or they were able to teach it to him, the concept of how important on an outside zone run the running back is. And I've said it before, it's almost like he's more important to make this work than the actual linemen who are up there blocking. Because and this is a great clip that Harrison's Huddle provided, shows you that his landmark, mesh point, whatever terminology they particularly use, but when he gets the ball, unlike the gap scheme, which is telling him which gap to go to, and all the offensive linemen are going to create space and so he can run through it. This is offensive linemen are following their blocking rules. The space is going to open up somewhere and you kind of have to find it. And that mesh point or landmark or whatever you want to call it, typically in an outside zone run, is targeted towards the tight end where he's lining up pre-snap, inside hip of the tight end, outside hip, straight up his backside, whatever that particular offense scheme designates it. So that's what Mitchell's doing right here. So if you see that arrow pointing at the bang, that's the arrow right about where the tight end would have been pre-snap. If there's no space there, he's looking to either bounce it outside or to look to cut back towards the middle, bend it back towards the middle of the formation. So we're going to run this play for a second, but right now, at the point where he's waiting for some space to open up, the bang portion of it, not really an option. There's a lot of bodies in there. So he's looking for space somewhere else. And I'll actually show you kind of where the pre-snap lined up here. And think about the bounce, the bang, or the bend. That's about ready to be coming up. So he takes the pitch. He's coming. There's no space. There's no space to the outside because he is unaccounted for. It looks like space on the inside, but despite shadow showing you there's another unaccounted guy closing up on that space. So now he's got no space, but there's a little crease, open it up, and he's got to go to the bang portion, which is He has to get upfield. Rule number one for a running back in this scheme. And rule number two is gain at least 4 yards. Well, he does a great job of doing way more than gaining 4 yards. But the reason why I wanted to show you that is this is predicated on Taysom Hill being able to understand and execute that that concept of I like the way they describe it with basically the bounce, the bang, or the bend. I have no reason to believe he doesn't. So I'm not overly concerned about it, but it's if he struggles with the concept at all, then it's a big concern because this is going to be very difficult to run without the running back being able to do exactly what Elijah Mitchell did on that play and able to see no space, no space, no space. Well, I have to bang it in there because I have to get forward downfield. I have to gain positive yards, and I need to get at least 4 to keep the chains moving because this offense needs to stay ahead of the change. Now, let's think about that concept. Remember, we're looking at Deebo Samuel is Taysom Hill. Elijah Mitchell is Alvin Kamara in this particular case. And right here, it's just a very simple outside zone run scheme. Deebo was in the slot. He goes in motion. Mitchell gets the handoff. He finds the space, moves upfield. Somebody came from the outside, was able to get initial contact on him, and play gets cleaned up. He gains 4 or 5. It's not a bad run, especially since they were as far backed up as they were. The interesting thing is, right here, if you can see, that's Deebo Samuel. And when he came through, and I do want to point this out, when he came through the line after going in motion and Elijah Mitchell is now following him, 51, who started off as in the middle of formation as a linebacker and very early. I'm not sure if he was going with Deebo because Deebo went in motion, or he was recognizing some type of outside zone run, and flew out of there to the outside. He's now coming back when he realizes Mitchell's taking what would be the bang out of our little graphic from earlier. If Deebo notices him or gets in his way or just gets a piece of him, this picks up more yardage because he's actually the guy that initially hit Mitchell and slowed him down and let the rest of the run fits catch up to him. And I almost feel like if this is Taysom, that guy's getting blocked. Taysom coming through the line right there and looking for somebody to hit because that's Taysom's mentality. He's not the greatest blocker in the world, but he's more than willing and able. And we've seen it where he'll bang heads with anybody. And he's looking in that situation. Oh, you need me to block? Well, let me go find somebody to hit real hard. I kind of feel like with Alvin there, this play goes even further because I really feel like Taysom doesn't, and I don't think Deebo blew by him. I think Deebo just wasn't looking over there and realizing he needed to do it. And I think that would be a situation where Taysom definitely would. And rolling all the way back, like I said, that's 51. We're going to see an awful lot of him during these video clips coming up. But he was towards the middle and he just plays the flow, gets outside. Nobody ever puts a finger on him. He gets in there, makes a hit, 4 or 5 yard gain. Now, it's important for you to know that I'm going to show you 3 plays in a row, all against the Rams, all in the same game, all in the same drive. And in this instance, the play we just watched, well, this is the very next play. And Deebo is lined up as the running back. You have a motion man here. I think it might be Mitchell. It's kind of hard to see the number. Doesn't really matter. They have somebody going in motion, and they have another all the way on the right side, another slot player. They're off the center guard tackle. Skill guy right here, tight end, fullback. Can't really see the number, and it doesn't really matter because And there's our buddy 51, and his days about ready to start going downhill. They start reading it. They get the kick out block here that they didn't get from Deebo on the play earlier to make sure nobody was coming from that side. 51 is untouched this whole time and not able still to get in a play because somebody picks him up backside. And you get a nice run from Deebo out of that because it opened up. Whoop. Let me back it up just a tad. Oh, there we go. And that's actually what we want to see. They cleared it out. So Deebo just basically gets through here. The hole looks great. We were talking about 51. He was free the whole time in the middle. He gets picked up backside. They've already sealed these guys on the wall. He gets kicked out. They've got him totally taken care of. Really only the safety having to fly up and make a play. And he actually does. And again, Deebo may be a little more athletic, agile, a little straight line explosive, gets up to speed a little faster than Taysom Hill. I think overall, if they were in a foot race, I think I'd put my money on Taysom. And Taysom squared up like that, mention it again, moving downhill at full speed is a different animal than Deebo Samuel. And I feel like what you just saw in that play, Deebo makes a nice gain out of it. They gain positive yards. He does everything he's supposed to do. But I'm thinking Taysom, good chance he breaks that initial contact that slowed Deebo down enough that somebody jumped on his back to finish the tackle. Again, a little different scenario with Taysom Hill. So when you think about the two plays, we looked at Deebo running the ball. One was perfectly executed, perfectly blocked, and Deebo blew through there and that was the very first clip we showed, made a very nice run. In this series, and backed up on the goal line. They basically ran the same exact play 2 plays in a row. They changed personnel on the second one. They moved their quote unquote wide receiver to tailback, put a guy in motion, and the defense didn't react the same way that they did on the first one with 51. First time 51 went flying around to get on that edge, and there was actually 2 defenders over there. This time he stays caught up in the middle, almost like that. There's no way they're running that play again. By the time he gets moving towards the defensive left, the secondary block, because whoever's the offensive line had handled their primary responsibility and started moving downfield and picked him right up before he could do anything. And on the outside contain, instead of having 2 guys there was only one. He was well blocked up out of the way. And so the only guy, somebody has to come up from the secondary and try to make the stop. And again, I feel like even in that situation, if it's a Taysom Hill instead of a Deebo, you're looking at more yardage than they actually got on that play. And it was set up the play before using Deebo as the motion. Next play, someone else is the motion. Deebo in the backfield getting the ball. And this is, yep, it's got stuck on me. Let's see if we can get this to flip. There we go. Deebo, again, now he's back in the slot position. He's going in motion. And I really wish this wasn't in the way because we could see it a little clearer. But what we got going on here is we have a quarterback with the ball about ready to hand it off or pitch with a motion man, Deebo, running across the formation, and then Mitchell doing exactly what he's done. The play we looked at 2 plays ago when he was in the tailback position, getting over and getting ready to receive the ball from the quarterback to get to his landmark to know whether he's got a bend, bang, or bounce. But the problem here is that Deebo motion. And Deebo's already touched the ball early in this drive and had a very nice run out of it. And our guy 51 is looking at space. He's looking at the quarterback with the ball. He's looking at offensive flow coming this way, not really sure which one's getting the ball, although he's probably figuring at this point it's Mitchell because Deebo's a little past. But it still doesn't mean Deebo couldn't keep moving laterally, and this is a play action pass, and there's some type of check down or quick screen going out to him. So there's a lot of frozen defenders at this point on this play. And yeah, that's what we want right there. What ultimately happens, and I got to skip in there that I don't know where that's coming from. There we go. It was a handoff to Mitchell. It was still that same zone, except this time it was zone with motion, wide zone with motion, where instead of Deebo clearing the snap like he did the first time he did it, at the snap, he's actually in a position where he could be the ball carrier. So it makes sense. So the first couple we showed, the motion had cleared the quarterback, snaps coming. If it's a running play, it's only going to the running back. This one, snaps coming. At a point where if it's a running play, there was a chance Deebo could have touched the ball right there. Froze up the linebacker, who there was space gap in front of him, if you remember from the last time I stopped it. Well, he didn't really do anything, didn't react. I guess he was still trying to figure out where the ball is going. And once again, he was the most dangerous man because nobody on the offensive line had him as primary run block responsibility. So he had a few seconds where nobody was going to be on to figure out what was going to happen and go blow the play up, which he didn't do. And now that he's diagnosed the play, which it was a bend, Mitchell had to cut it back towards the middle of the field against the outside portion of formation, back towards the middle. And 51 realized it. And once again, now one of the offensive linemen, his primary block is done. He gets off of it. He starts moving to the second level, and 51 suddenly finds himself blocked again. And some secondary members come up, 24. If you watch it out down at the bottom of your screen, one of the safeties has an oh crap moment here for a second because he almost gets blocked and picked off, but manages to avoid it, does a good job of getting into play and holding down what could have been a lot worse situation on that run. But it's still positive gain, positive chain moving run, easily picked up 5-6 yards. So they are staying ahead of the chains. And it's just these play calling with these little deviations all the way down the field, but it's the same play. It's the same outside zone run with different motion, or changing the running, quote unquote, running back and wide receiver at spots, letting the wide receiver carry the ball, the running back doing the motion. And that's why I had to put this in here, because keeping Taysom on the field with Alvin, and just think about what we saw, the havoc created on those three plays, the running back being the primary ball carrier on two of them, doing a good job moving chains, like we said, and Deebo only getting one touch and having probably one of the better runs of the three out of it, but basically decoying the other two and causing so much stress on the defense that, especially in the last one, this kind of gap play right here, 51 has space. He still really hasn't moved. And conceivably at this point, he could get in the play, but just kind of sits there. And from this point on, instead of going forward through that gap, trying to get in the backfield, because Mitchell has it. Mitchell's still 5 yards in the backfield. And the can't say it enough, the wide zone scheme cannot have running backs getting caught in the backfield tackle for losses. Just, it cannot happen. And instead, 51 sits back, and then he tries to go down the line to make a play once he realized Mitchell is cutting back to the middle, and gets blocked up by one of those 49 interior offensive linemen. That's 3 times, only 3 plays on this drive that started inside their own 5, and now I'm not quite sure where they are, but it looks like somewhere definitely past midfield or right at midfield. You think about the average Saints drive, if they can keep the chains moving and you can do similar run type plays using the same personnel, as opposed to what we saw for years and years where Sean and then Pete tried it and didn't work nearly as well. Massive personnel shifts to get all these matchups, and they always used to call it the looks they wanted. We need to get the looks right. Where in this offense, you don't really need to make massive personnel changes. You move your personnel around. You move them pre-snap, you move them post-snap. You take your running back and put him at wide receiver, and you take your wide receiver and put him in running back. And in the case of Alvin and Taysom, both of the Alvin could play wide receiver full time. Taysom could play running back full time. You wouldn't you wouldn't even bat an eye at that. Using them interchangeably, like they do in these clips, with Taysom taking the Deebo spot and Alvin taking the Elijah Mitchell spot. And let's be honest, that's more like Alvin taking the Christian McCaffrey spot that they're using this offense in now. Nothing against Elijah Mitchell. He's a very good NFL back, but he's no Christian McCaffrey. He's no AK-41. This is, to me, one of the must. And there's no doubt Klint Kubiak has to know this. If he doesn't, we're really going to be in trouble. But these two interchangeable parts, how hard would it be running this as your base offense and taking those two guys and being interchangeable somewhat in the backfield as opposed to the split out? And this isn't counting any reverses or bubble screens or any of that stuff, like on that last play that had 51 just so stressed out that there was an opportunity. Deebo could get the ball right straight from the quarterback or a little further down the play. How hard is, if you have Taysom and Alvin on the field together all 4 quarters in these situations, much like they use Deebo and let's say Christian McCaffrey nowadays, how hard is it for both of them to get their touches? It's not hard to get McCaffrey and Deebo their touches in this offense. And Deebo gets a fair amount of them. Some games, a lot of them, but some games, just a couple, actually through the running game. Deebo also gets some of his catches lined up as a running back and then getting out on the route, a lot like Alvin used to. And Taysom definitely could. So, I mean, we talked about between revamping the Taysom package, where you could run that anywhere on the field. We used a goal line example earlier, but I mean, you could really run something like that similar anywhere you wanted on the field. And now you're talking about, even though it is not an apples to apples comparison when you're talking Deebo to Taysom Hill, it is at least apple to oranges. I mean, it's not an apple to a Buick. And you can use them to get their touches, because ultimately, I don't know if Alvin can go anymore at this point in his career. And I don't think you even want to try this, getting 20, 25 touches, 30 ish approaching to try to win games, especially week after week. If we could get back to making sure Taysom gets his, it's got to be double digit. He's got to get 10 total. Probably needs to be north of 12 or even 15 that you can integrate into a game. And Alvin, 15-ish. And keep them in those numbers and able on the field together and guessing, or forcing the defense to guess, or forcing the defense to stress itself massively trying to figure out who's getting the ball. That's how you make Taysom a beast. We already know Alvin is, and Alvin's going to get his touches. This Taysom as Deebo, using him in these situations, even though he doesn't always touch the ball every single time, using him in these situations are going to lead to more touches. and you don't have to manufacture them in the crazy ways we were trying to manufacture it the last couple of years. It's actually part of your natural offense. The third way that we can unleash a beast from Taysom Hill is a rather simple way. And let's Taysom is Kyle Juszczyk. Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, last several years for Frisco, primarily used as a fullback, does a lot of blocking, but he's a very dangerous guy because he can run and catch the ball. And Frisco has a habit of not necessarily using him often, but when they do use him, he can be quite effective. Because honestly, when you're talking about, oh man, McCaffrey, Deebo, Elijah Mitchell, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittles, and just keep going down the line, the fullback a lot of times becomes the least of the defense's concern. It's a goal line. It's a red zone play where Juszczyk is lined up right next to Jimmy Garoppolo. Kittle's a split by himself on the left. You got a trip formation towards the right. That's obviously Deebo Samuel on the line of scrimmage. Not quite sure who the other two are, but being at Frisco, you can pretty much bank on ability, athleticism, and speed sitting out there next to Deebo. So the snap of the ball, basically all the outside receivers are getting in the routes, and mostly they're getting at him downfield. But Juszczyk has come out of the backfield in just an old-fashioned, tried and true option route right back across the middle of the field. Saints fans very familiar with this because Alvin and Drew used to run this multiple times a game, and even if the defense knew it was coming, it couldn't be stopped. Well, they do a good job of doing their own Drew and Alvin impression, and boom, Juszczyk's in for the score. This next one I left in here because it doesn't really show anything specifically other than you don't have to quite use your imagination um, as much when you realize that if not particularly in the red zone, but anywhere where this option route where he catches the ball over the middle of the field, there's a clip here where Juszczyk basically catches and he becomes what we know Taysom would be in the open field with a clear, again, downhill run after catching the ball. And a lot of times on an option route like that, especially if the defense isn't ready for it, you get that wide open look, easy space, all about space, easy pitch and catch. He turns upfield, and Taysom being Taysom, just like you check there, middle of the field, headed downhill, shoulder square, getting up to speed. He's going to be bouncing people all over the place when they try to tackle him. And this is the overview of a play they're going to break down in a second. And it's actually a series of play. And once again, this is all from the same game, same drive against Indy, where Mitchell breaks a beautiful run from midfield to get him down close to the red zone. And this is not quite a wide zone look. I think this is more of an inside zone, split zone concept. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to it in just a second. But it's a straightforward I formation. You have a tight end, not Kittles. I'm not quite sure who that is. Line up in the slot on the right-hand side, right next to the right tackle. And when they snap the ball on this, which they will be doing any second, there we go. You kind of see where that inside zone, they've got everything sealed off. You got good blocking on the perimeter. There's Deebo giving a great block. Juszczyk come barreling through to get the in man on the line, and Mitchell turns it into a very, very nice gain. And here's why it's important. I don't think this is quite next to the very next play, but it's pretty close to a play after that long run that Mitchell just made. Looks the same, doesn't it? except for now Mr. Tight End's on the left side in the slot right off the left tackle's hip. And remember when I was talking about split zone? Split flow, which is basically, this would be more of an indication of an inside, the five offensive linemen doing inside run left, inside zone left. But you've got two in the split flow. You basically have two guys that are going to be motioning away from the actual play call on the inside run to the left. And in the second, they're going to throw up a spot shadow on these two linebackers. That this is what this offense can do to defenses. Because you're thinking this is going to be simple. But those two guys motioning, you've got tight end coming across, you have Usyk coming across. They're not really doing much of anything but running against the flow of the actual play call. And you've got two linebackers who are bailing out like the ball is headed their way, and there's nobody other than those two left to stop them. Meanwhile, Mitchell actually takes the ball on the inside zone run left and pretty much houses it. Now, the reason why I showed that, because this is the part where we're going to have to use our imagination a little bit. And just think that on this run, as you get down in the red zone, that let's say the tackle happens about right there, and he doesn't quite get in, your first and goal type situation. Do you think there's a world? Because I do. I just don't have visual proof to prove it. But there's a world where that Kyle Shanahan designed offense with the motion, with the keep things simple, but confuse the hell out of the defense scheme and play calling he uses, where Mitchell gets tackled right there, gets inside the five, that they don't line up in the exact same I formation you just saw, do something a little different with the tight end. And because they've gotten burned, basically, we'll call it two plays in a row. I'm not quite sure if there was another play in between it, but let's call it two plays in a row. They got burned by Mitchell. One on a fairly straightforward run for a long game. Then a little trickeration kicks in, and there just wasn't enough defenders there to defend it. So he rips off another run and actually gets into the end zone. But if he stops short right here, and Shanahan throws out a scheme on the very next play where they do hand the ball with similar type play flow, hand the ball to Juszczyk. Do you really think anybody's defending him at that point on first and goal from the 3? And you basically have the same personnel in there, more or less. Would have Garoppolo fakes one of those two previous run plays, especially the last one, when you had the split flow with everybody moving left and two guys moving right, off a play action rollout to the right. I think a little run pass combo with somebody in the short, possibly use check down type roll, and with that tight end able to break through to the backside of that formation and getting into the back of the end zone. Well, yeah, I think I have a similar play coming up in the very next and final, the fourth segment on how to use Taysom Hill coming up. That while not the exact same situation as this would have been had Mitchell gotten tackled, it does show the concept of how all this ties together and eventually evolves into how the passing game's used around what they do in the running game, and how Taysom Hill would be a big part of that also. So following the fourth way Taysom Hill becomes a beast is the passing game. We've been doing a lot of work on the running game so far. with a slight nod to the updating the Taysom package. But here where it kind of comes all together. Because one of the things about their passing offense, it is simple. It really, really is. But yet complex in its own way that causes a lot of stress on the defense. And right here, this first play, it's basically a two route combo. You have a medium cross coming from the right side of the formation. On the left side of the formation, you're going to have basically a clearing route going straight up the field. And you have a motion player that was lined up. So you kind of had a twins left situation, but the player off the line of scrimmage is going in a little pre-snap motion. And what he's about ready to show you here is looking at the two guys on that side of the field is basically being cleared out by one guy running up the field as the motion carries away. And you have an easy pitch and catch. There's almost nothing going on there that's overly complicated. One of the ways that this works or makes this work, and this is the other point that he didn't bring up, but I wish he would have, is don't worry what's going on in the defensive backfield. Look at the line of scrimmage here. What you basically have is you have a bunch of offensive linemen more run blocking than they are pass blocking. Like it is some type of outside zone running play. You had a play fake in there. Back it up just a tad, watch again. He gives a little play fake to the guy that had went in motion. And a lot of the defense is either biting on it or they're just kind of sitting, almost like they're trying to make sure who actually has the ball before they react. And by this time, it's too late. The offensive line has basically kept their run blocking rules. They're engaged. And the beautiful part about this is you're still causing some confusion in the defense because they're looking at a bunch of offensive linemen run blocking. And you don't have to worry about them going downfield because in the wide zone at first push, they're more worried about going lateral than horizontal. So you shouldn't get a defensive lineman downfield illegally, drawing a penalty and killing the play. And so once you got them going that way, well, just keep pushing them towards the sideline. There's no reason to go forward at all at that point. The play fake, sorry, in the backfield, frozen up the pass rush for a minute. They have to make sure. And so inevitably, he's got all kind of time to throw the ball. He's got mostly an open field because they've cleared some players out. He was caught up in the run play action. He's a little late in recovering. So you got the shallow cross open, kind of leaving one defender that's basically going to be in the area, but he's got the check down guy that I think that's the tight end that came from the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, kind of crossing in his face. So he really can't deepen up and go anywhere. And all that comes together for a nice little pitch and catch. And the thing is about those route combos, when you talk to Taysom Hill, he can easily handle a shallow or middle cross. He can handle a check down. And last few years, we've seen he does have an ability to go up the field and stretch the field and make a play catching the ball downfield. So this type of very simple off all that running they do with the motion and turning into play action lends itself to using Taysom as the motion man and the decoy, absolutely. But I don't see anything in that particular route combination that would go exclude Taysom from getting some looks, some targets in the passing game. And once again, that last play showed it. Imagine Taysom catching the ball 15 yards down the field, that wide open, able to secure it, square up, and start moving full speed towards the goal line. It's a defensive nightmare. They just don't want to have to deal with that, especially at that point on a play like that. The people coming up to tackle him are all a lot smaller than he is. Go one more, and this is a beautiful one to show once again how their running game sets up so much in the play action. Because once again, look what the offensive line is doing. That's run blocking. That's a wide zone scheme run blocking. And they make a pretty good fake back here. And the spot shadow shows up on a linebacker who, and I believe that's Darius Leonard, who was one of the top linebackers in the league before a neck injury basically ended his career. He doesn't fall for it. He doesn't exactly get into his pass defense drop right away, but he doesn't really bite on that run fake. And the run fake's a pretty good one because they caught a lot of guys on that run fake. In fact, enough of the pass rush that they've effectively been neutralized, and Jimmy G gets to just roll back, set up cleanly in the pocket. Not much really going on there, and you're seeing Leonard is realizing, "Holy crap, I'm in trouble." Because he is in trouble. He couldn't find the cross, and that's what he was trying to do is get back there and find that crossing receiver. Even though he kind of, and believe me, most linebackers in the league right now aren't as good as this guy was during this period when he was in his heyday before the injury. He still struggled, and that was something normally he was very good at, is getting back in that middle, finding those crossing routes and causing problems. And they delayed him enough. So your average middle linebacker, like a Demario Davis, is on a level of this guy and a few other linebackers around the league. But your average middle linebacker is going to be totally nowhere near that play. And even one of the best ones at the time is truly not really near that play after that play action sequence. So you're hitting Deebo in full stride, catching the ball, running down the field. And this is what we keep talking about. Why can't that be 7? I see no reason why this isn't a play that you should see a couple times a game with Taysom Hill. No reason at all. And finally, okay, way back, long time ago, when Tim was playing high school football, my first high school football coach, we ran on offense the Delaware wing tee. And I really hate saying that because that dates exactly how old I am. And all the younger people right now are probably Googling their brains out to find out what the hell a Delaware wing tee is. However, this is what Coach Blaze used to tell us when we were doing the install. And watching this, I finally understood exactly what the phrase meant. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. We're going to use the old English version of poop, shite. But if you really want to know what he said, just drop the E. But he always said when he was installing the offense, if you guys run this right, trust me, the defense will not know whether to shite or go blind. This play right here is about ready to tie up everything together that we've been talking about. And trust me, there was a whole bunch of guys on that defense didn't know whether to shite or go blind. First thing, simple route concept. Very simple. You've got an out. You've got a stack on the defensive right. You got a stack on the defensive right. You have a single receiver. I'm sorry, the offensive right. You've got a single receiver on the offensive left, and you have a running back. In this case, Mitchell. You're going to get a simple out route, simple kind of bend, post flag, not really, but somewhere basically towards the middle, then back out to the side. And then you're getting across. Now, the third guy in the stack is Uschek. And this is one I could easily imagine Taysom Hill sitting here. But again, none of these route concepts are terribly hard. And none of this is stuff that he can't do. We've seen him do it in the past few years when they used him more as a receiver. Just for whatever reason, our offensive coordinator couldn't figure out that he was actually a pretty good receiver and try to find more ways to get him the ball that way. So This is going to be, once again, off of play action. Outside zone. Still have defenders falling for it. You have linebackers getting sucked up in here. That cross from the left side, offensive left side, nobody is holding their ground and giving him any trouble. So they're actually stepping up, and he's about ready to run right behind their behinds, basically. And this guy, he's got no chance. He was expecting some type of help on the inside, and it just ain't there. I want to draw attention down here, Mr. Uschek, and this is one of the reasons why I'm liking Taysom kind of for this spot on a play like this, is he's giving a little slowdown on that edge right there to keep him from getting a clean shot in the backfield. And I think this is also helping sell the run fake a little bit, because now this guy's got somebody on him trying to fight through it. He's seeing this flow. So even if he's peeking in the backfield or not peeking in the backfield, he's got some sense of there's a possible handoff going on. And he gets caught up on the inside, taking himself out of the play. It's a true rollout. At this point, you have now a check down developing right here on one of the easiest pitch and catches you could about imagine. You have the little inside outside route developing right here. That is George Kittle's. And then you have the cross that nobody paid any attention to except the poor guy trying to trail behind him and cover him. And that's just ain't happening. And you have the out route developing, another easy pitch and catch if you want it. And this is where it gets truly amazing. And there's a lot of shiting and going blinding right now. These guys are totally out to play and totally useless. This poor guy is caught between a rock and a hard place because he full well knows there's an easy pitch and catch right here with Juszczyk, who he's going to have to try to go tackle. But there's also this developing out route. He just doesn't know what's going on. I don't know why he's not closing here, but it looks like he's actually trying to back up. The the crosser's got nothing but trail guys behind him now at this point, and your tight end is breaking out beautifully wide open downfield, and he's got easy level looks. He's got just by once he rolled out, set his feet, looks up. He's got basically three guys, all of which are wide open in his field of vision before he even has to looking for his fourth route, his fourth option. And he can pretty much take anything he wants at this point. And head up, he's looking the whole way. He's seeing the whole shebang. Nobody bothered him. Throws a pump fake to really get that guy to bite. And then back it up just a 10. Because Kittles has now come back out that midfield route and moving back towards the boundary. Wide open. And you have the free safety back here who the whole time was shiting and going blinding because he had to see this mess the whole time. And there's really nothing he can do about it because he knows nobody's covered. He has to stay back here and is basically able to pull off after Kittles catches it. And it wasn't the greatest throw in the world either from Jimmy G, something we saw a lot of. But he had to stay back because if that's a clean pitch and catch going on right there, he's going to be the only guy that's able to save a touchdown. The play rolls on from here, and everybody acts like Kittle's got in the end zone, but actually he was down by contact because if the throw had been a tad bit better, one of the defenders chasing him actually was able to get in the play before he had the before or rather was able to catch up, because before when he was a little more open, the throw had been a little quicker, a little more on target, and he's in stride. Look out. And even this guy is going to be in trouble. So when you look at putting all this together, in the concept of you can put Taysom Hill in multiple spots in this offense, and not only Taysom, but our versatile players. Alvin definitely. Think about Shaheed being able to carry the ball some out of this, plus catching it both downfield and short. You have true receivers in the mix like Perry and Olave. Juwan Johnson could become very important in this. He needs to kind of get back to where he was 2 years ago. But you have a lot of assets to throw the ball to. But you have two in Alvin and Taysom that you can use kind of interchangeably, their own version of Deebo and Christian McCaffrey, the way they've been used the last few years. And you have the extra advantage of taking Taysom and updating the Taysom package, where there's a run throw option whenever you want to pull that out. And the beautiful thing about this is Frisco, like we mentioned earlier, does not use massive, constant personnel changes trying to get the mismatches and all, like Sean was very good at for a very long time. And Pete tried hard, but just didn't get it and couldn't make it work. And a lot of times, like sitting in our where our family seats are in the dome, and about the 40, about 8 rows up, right behind the visitors' bench. And over the years, you could see that as soon as we made a personnel change, there was a lot of, and these were the well coached teams we played against and the ones that more than likely we took losses against. As soon as that new personnel group ran on the field from the opposite sideline, it was automatic. You had a whole defensive personnel group that ran on the field and some others came off. Like nobody was making a call. It was basically all week. You just kind of got the feeling that defenses were going, well, when these guys are in the game, we're going with this personnel. And as soon as they changed to this package, you guys, and they just knew. There wasn't a lot of communication necessary. They were ready on the field, ready to call their defense, and it really wasn't fooling anybody, and it really wasn't getting the mismatches. This type of offense shows if you have the right personnel, and I truly believe the Saints do, especially Taysom and Alvin, that you can keep them on the field. But by moving them around pre snap, post snap, during the snap, motion, also interchanging their positions, doing it in multiple spots. So Taysom in the backfield, Alvin out wide, everything going together in the mix. You force defenses to stay on the field in more or less basic packages and not being able to dump certain personnel on the field because you change personnel and that's the matchup they want. Now they kind of have to ride with what they got. And they got to have guys that are able to figure out the chaos that's being thrown at them or the illusion of chaos. Because breaking this down and going through it, is there anything really overly complicated you saw the Kyle Shanahan Frisco offense do? This mind blowing stuff. Sean used to do that almost to the detriment where rookies struggled and new players showing up expecting to make an impact struggled trying to get. I'm pretty sure all our players are going to have no problem picking up the concepts that are that basic, and that the understanding is we want to keep it simple, but make it appear overly complicated to them. We want to put the stress on them, quite honestly, every single play. We want them to try to figure out whether they're going shite or going blind. So, what have we learned here tonight? Quite a bit. And I know I had a lot of fun creating this video, as time consuming as it was, because it literally a couple of weeks worth of work to get all this together. But it was worth it because what I learned, and I hope I can convey to the best of my ability, Taysom Hill strategically is a huge important piece of what the Saints are trying to do on offense. Bringing in Klint Kubiak, the Shanahan scheme, and what his version of it's gonna evolve and turn into. Hopefully, take it along with him the importance Shanahan placed on having that scheme and the play calling to support it, and using the players you have. It's not about getting Taysom to fit a certain style or type of play or a certain position exclusively. Again, Kubiak mentioned in an interview when they asked about what his player designation is going to be, and he just essentially said a weapon. It's so I was very encouraged to hear that while I was working on this. I happened to catch that, and I'm like, thank you. He's just a weapon. We have to find ways to use him, and if you can use him, you know, updating the Taysom package, using him very similar to the way they use Deebo Samuel in the running game, using him as Kyle Juszczyk, of where there will be some touches in there. And in both those cases, if you involve him in the offense, he actually becomes a decoy when he's not going to touch the ball and open things up for the other players. Alvin, especially, would probably appreciate that. And in the passing game, unless Klint Kubiak is going to pull out some overly complicated scheme regarding the passing game, and I don't think he will. I think he's made it no no qualms about following kind of the Shanahan blueprint that this is all set up, run heavy, maybe, but more about the run than the pass. Keep the chains moving, and then take your big plays and your shots off of play action pass. And at all costs, they really do want to avoid having second and third and longs where all that gets taken out of the equation, and the front line or the offensive line is now in straight pass pro. I think there's no doubt Taysom is going to be a big part of that. He has to touch the ball. Minimum double digits. 12, 15 is what we need to be targeting here. I don't see any reason why it can't happen. And I don't see any reason why Taysom is not going to be a beast. Just total unleashed beast mode in this offense. But tell you what, tell me what you think about my ideas, my 4 concepts for how we can get Taysom into beast mode, or do you have any of your own? And like I said, I really enjoyed making this video. If anybody has anything else where they want me to try to take a deep dive into film and um, explain is not quite the right word here, but just analyze how it could affect the Saints player offense or defense. Pop that down in the comments too, and if it's something I can figure out how to do and pull it off, I will be more than happy to try and drop it as an episode in the podcast. So, thank you very much for watching. While you're in the comments, if you wouldn't mind, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification, all that other fun stuff. And until the next time I see you, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?